David Brewster here with New Brewster's Millions of Rants, and this is Tap Into Technique. And this episode's actually going to build your technique playing on the guitar using tapping. And for some of the viewers out there, this might be very different or unusual. Maybe you don't really tap or have never tapped, but there's a reason we're tapping through this material. And this actually traces back to when I was a teenager, and I was in my bedroom, hopelessly obsessed with Van Halen, and I was working on tapping, but I was also working on my technique, and I was trying to gain control over using all of my fret hand fingers, including my pinky. And I sat there and I was using a pick, and I was picking through scales and some licks and exercises. And I noticed even though I was focusing on my fret hand, I was also focusing on my picking hand too, and I was distracted. So I thought, well, what if I get rid of the pick and I start tapping or something? And then I started working on this material. And then over the years, I kind of took the idea and kind of repackaged it or kind of upgraded it, and that's basically what I'm sharing in this episode. And I've given this to hundreds of students over the years, and now it's your turn. Now, before we dive in here, I want to share this image, which basically lists a whole bunch of guitarists that are known for tapping. And you may notice, there's some very familiar names on this list, and then some not so familiar names, and more obscure, lesser known players. There's lots of pioneers on this image, not to mention, some famous, more modern guitarists that are known for tapping. But check out some of these players and make sure you go back and check out the pioneers and legends too. So the first thing we need to do here is pick a key and also pick a scale. And I'm going to choose the key of C and just target the C major scale just to keep everything really simple. Then once you see this concept, you can easily change it into other keys. You can also target other tonalities and scales. Maybe turn it into Dorian or Lydian or harmonic minor or something. But to get started here, let's just target a really basic C major scale, and then we're going to do something very unusual with it. So let's just start with this really basic, like Mel Bay C major right here. Right there, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? The alphabet starting on C. But instead of playing that in one position like that, let's learn it on one string. So we're going to line this up on the B string, and we're going to start on the C right there. So instead of playing it like this, let's try playing it like this. You can see right there we did C, D, E, and then I shifted to F, with my pinky. Then go up and grab this G, A, B, and then shift with your pinky to C. It's like a mirror image of what we did here, but up here. So there's ascending, right? Now if you want to descend, you can go down the exact same way, with that whole step fingering, or you could also start like this and then shift with your index finger back like this. And then do the same thing right there. Before we do anything else, you want to practice the scale just like that. Go up like this, and then go down. And if you want to go down the other way, you can definitely investigate that too. But practice that first. That's the first step. Okay, now we're going to start tapping. So once you have that scale under your fingers and on the fretboard like that, then what I want you to do is we're going to target and we're going to start doing 3-point tapping or 3-note tapping. The point terminology doesn't really seem to be used anymore. Once upon a time, they did call it 3-point tapping, meaning there were, 2 fretted notes and 1 tap note, 3 points or notes, on the fretboard. What I want you to do is we're going to tap C right there, right on the 13th fret, and that note's going to stay the same. And you're tapping, but I don't want you to be so distracted tapping that you're not paying attention to what your fret hand's doing, because this is a fretboard or fret hand workout. So tap that C, and that's going to stay the whole time. And then what I want you to do after you tap that C note is you're going to go to the octave right there which you're fretting, and then also hammer onto that D. So it's the higher tap C to the lower C octave, and then a hammer onto D, and you're just doing that 3-note kind of pattern like this. Right, now move this up and go to D and E and do the same thing. Now E and F, and you got that little half step pattern there. And now that F and G. that G and A, and then that A and B. Right? So we just walked up the scale. And that's hammer-ons, right? And then practice pull-offs and go descending right there. Tap the C and then B to A. So if you've ever studied with me before, or you've been watching my channel, you probably have a decent idea what we're going to do next. Now we're going to perform that on every string, just to really exhaust, every possibility on the guitar with 3-point tapping using this concept. So let's move to the high E string, and now it's going to be F major right here. Same concept, tap that F and then start this 3-point tapping, kind of moving up using hammer-ons first, like that. And then descending with pull-offs. And you can definitely fly through this and shred it, but since we're working on technique, you should go slow and really focus on what your fret hand's doing. Don't have to worry about what you're tapping so much. I mean, that tap note is important, but focus on that fret hand and the movement, and don't fly away from the string really far like that. And really, kind of maybe fret a little bit harder than you normally do, and then that way when you relax after you do this, anything you play is going to feel easier because you kind of worked on this technique and kind of built that strength, and then you kind of relaxed a little bit and letting it flow, like this. Now we already did the B string, but let's do it again just to be thorough. Do the B again. Let's do it again, and now it's going to be A flat major. Everything's the same, just a different string. So grab that A flat and then tap your way through that G string. And then descend. To the D string, and now it's going to be E flat major right there, and go through the exact same thing. And then tap your way through the scale like that. Now it's going to be B flat major, the same process. And then tap your way through the A string. The low E string, and we're back in F, just like the high E string, but it's an octave or 2 octaves lower, and it's going to be growling and kind of lower pitch, but like this. And then tap your way through that low E string. So now we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to investigate 4-point tapping instead of 3-point tapping. So we're adding an additional note. So that's going to definitely, boost the difficulty, but also boost the technique that you're working on here. So for anybody that's struggling, using all of your fret hand fingers, especially the pinky, this is a great exercise for sure. So let's go back to the B string and target C major just to kind of, move through it from the beginning like this. So everything's the same, except, we're going to still tap C, but now you've got this bigger spread right there, C, D, and E with your fret hand like this. Right? Then move up and grab that D, E, and F and do that. And then that E, F, and G. And then that F, G, and A. And then that G, A, and B. And then descend. And you can see right there we're using 3 of the most common fingerings on the guitar. That stretchy whole step shape, the whole step half step shape, and also the half step whole step shape. And then there's 2 more of those whole step shapes right there. But that's a great pattern, to kind of work on of notes, because you're working on all those important fingerings like that. That might seem really slow, but I'm really focusing on my technique right there, going slow. Alright, let's take what we did on the B string and do it on every string. So let's move to the high E and do the same thing. B string again. Over here. And then descend. Go to the D string, do it right there. Same thing. And then finally the low E string for the final movement right here. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of Brewster's Millions of Rants with tap into technique. And now that I've shared the basic concept here, we were hitting the major scale and we moved it across, all the strings on the guitar using 3 and 4 point tapping. Now it's up to you to change keys. You can change the different scales and tonalities and modes. You could alter it and change it into Lydian, just raise the 4th, or maybe mix Lydian and lower the 7th. And then you can slowly start to kind of tap into other scales and modes, pun intended. But there's a lot you can kind of, reveal with this idea. And, aside from the fingering, combinations that are very important and kind of moving around the fretboard, we did kind of just lock onto one string. So once again, it would be up to you to kind of start moving, to multiple strings, maybe move over to the high E string and start kind of moving it, a little differently like that, or move it descending like down to the G or something. And you can kind of practice, different ways of moving around the guitar neck. But the single string kind of approach is interesting, especially if you haven't done it before. And it really does give you like a bird's eye view of the notes on the fretboard, which helps. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to my lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.